Now, this, I have to say, is my favorite image. And I normally
Thank
don't say
you.
that, but there's just something about it.
So this was the snug in the same bar, but I think we were trying to historically the snug was where women were banished to and they had to sit separately from the men. So I think we tried to turn that on its head and make this the like the most glamorous room and the kind of exciting room
Mm.
and almost celebrate femininity, I think, in this room. So that was
Is,
kind
is
of
it backlit, Brian?
no, there's an LED behind the banquette that sort of lights it
Yeah.
upwards. But
All
uh,
right.
but it was a mural artist called T.M. Davy who's based in New York.
And
Who
we've done a lot of work with now.
since yeah he came over and we pitched him to the group as well, and they were on board for getting him over. So he came and did this for us.
I think I saw a photograph of him actually painting it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
don't think we
and
have that.
this image of this bar really went all over the world for us and really kind of put our name out there in a huge way.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Art as Well. My guests this morning are Irish designers Bryan O'Sullivan and James O'Neill. Bryan was born in Kerry and James in Dublin, but they've made their lives in London, where they have an extremely successful interior design company. And not only do they have their company in London, but they also have a head office in New York. And their work really extends right throughout the globe. It's a fascinating story, and it's a lovely personal story as well. So let's go over straight away and meet the two of them in London and say hello to them. Good morning, Bryan. Good morning, James. How are you?
Morning, Alan. How are you?
Great, thanks. You're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I know you're actually in your office.
We
In
are in our
Cork.
office, yes.
We have
Yeah,
a 2-year-old boy who rules the roost at home, so we thought it was better let him at home with his minder, and then we vacated.
He would have totally stolen the show. So we've our office luckily is literally just a hop across from where we live. So we thought we would just duck out here. It might be easier.
very interesting. And that's Cosmo.
That's
Yes, that's
Cosmo.
And
Cosmo.
Cosmo is two, yeah?
Yes.
He just turned 2 at the end of January.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, look, we might get into a little bit more on that, but just in terms of where you are, I thought you'd be in your place in the Barbican. And interestingly, I got an email from a previous guest of ours, Deborah Lampkin, who's a botanical artist. And Deborah said, "Oh, I see you're interviewing my neighbours."
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So she's got a place there. She lives in Kent or something, but she also has an apartment there, and she works with the Royal Horticultural Society and all sorts of things like that. A wonderful practice. But she says, yeah, no, they don't know me, but I know them.
Oh, that's
I follow
nice.
them.
It's a great hub at the Barbican. It has lots of creatives, lots of artists live there, lots of people in design.
Mm,
Because it's kind of built around the galleries. It was kind of, I guess, encouraged for artists to sort of live there, I think, when it was first developed.
mm.
And it's a great spot.
And the cultural centre really still is the epicenter of what's going on in London. Everybody goes there and they do the most incredible program of shows. So, yeah, it's a great place to get to live.
And when was that built?
It was completed, I think, in 1980, but I think the what happened was during the World War II that they were trying to get St. Paul's Cathedral, but I think they kept missing. But that whole track north of St. Paul's Cathedral got really heavily bombed. So there was this huge track of, I think it's like, is it like 60 acres or something like that? They were able to redevelop. And it was a company called Bon Chamberlain Powell, I think, were the architects that redeveloped it. So it was kind of like a 60s vision of
Yeah.
the future, kind of brutalist
But amazing
development.
to think as well how they did it when we work on computers and models and renders and everything was just done with sketching. It's incredible
By
like,
hand,
all
yeah.
the volumes of it and how accurate it is considering everything was done by hand, which is obviously how everything was done up until very recently, but just so
Yeah.
much precision required.
Yeah. And is it a big place? I mean, would there be many people living in the Barbican?
Thousands, yeah.
Huge, yeah. There's
Really?
there's three towers, and each of those has like 120 apartments, and then there's more kind of low-rise 6, 7 story buildings. So I think there's thousands of homes basically in the development.
And forgive my ignorance, but is the Tate nearby?
It is. So you can cross the river. We're very close to the river. So we're just north of St. Paul's Cathedral.
Yes.
And then Tate Modern is just across. And then I guess Tate Britain's a little bit further up
It's
the
about
river.
10 minutes away
Is it? Okay. All
by
right.
foot.
Yeah. So you love it there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you come home much to Ireland?
We do. We go. We spend a lot of our time. We go down to Kerry, where Brian is from, in Kenmare, because it's very quiet and peaceful. So we go there maybe 4 times a year, and then we try to get to Dublin as well. But that's maybe 3 times a year, so a little bit less. But
other than that, you divide your time between London and New York.
Yeah.
And how do you divide it? I mean, duration-wise, what would your
Well,
typical?
we used to be like Spice Girls, Alan. So we would be in a different city every day, and we'd be yaing all over the world, which was great crack. But
Yes.
the amazing thing about having a baby is that it means that you just have to slow down.
Sure.
So now we kind of ping pong across every 4 to 6 weeks from one side to the other side.
For the last 2 years, I'd say we've been doing 50-50 between New York and London.
Yeah.
And that's sort of worked. So I guess we feel we have another year or two of being able to live like that, and then obviously school starts, so we need to pick a city.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Pick a city.
yeah.
Which one do you think it'll be?
I still love London. I think it's an incredible city. I think especially with everything that's going on in America at the moment, I think it's a very I mean, it's an incredible place, New York as well. And but there's just, I guess not to get too involved in politics, but yeah,
No.
it's a very chaotic reign at the moment, let's say.
And culturally, it's there is a different point of view than there is in Europe. But then on the flip side, it's a much easier place to do business and to become successful in. So I guess realistically, we'll probably spend a little bit more time there for a few years, but ultimately we would like to raise our children, hopefully our children one day, or one child now, but hopefully, in the future more over here.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Now, in numerically, I gather you employ 70 people, and that's
in and around,
between London. So would the majority be in London?
Yeah, we're about 45 in London. We're about close to 20 in New York.
Yeah.
And we've a gallery. We launched a furniture collection last year, and we've a small gallery space in Mayfair, just next to Claridge's.
Fantastic. That's where you actually do your own designs of furniture and lighting.
Yeah. Yes. And we have a little space there that we sell at. And we've 2 people that work there as well.
Okay. Well, now, as you know, the plan is to show about 9 projects of your work, okay? And they're split between sort of domestic, residential, domestic, and hotels and so on. But before we do that, I want to get a sort of a flavor of how you came to be where you are. So, Bryan, could we start with you on our left?
Yeah.
and just give us a bit of a potted history about how you got into the business of interior design and the sort of the timelines involved in that.
Yeah. I guess art was actually my favorite subject in school always. I used to what was the expression? Bunk off class to go to the art. I got on really well with the art teacher. I went to boarding school in Dublin and went to school at Connaught College. But I used to get on unbelievably well with my art teacher, and I used to sometimes was able to, she'd let me sit down the back and paint away while she had other classes in. And it was kind of always, that was kind of my happy place. But I wanted to study architecture, but the points in Ireland were crazy at the time. I think you needed nearly 600 points to get in.
Really?
And then I guess my other passion was cooking. My mum had restaurants in Kenmare, and I'm very into chefing as well. So I ended up studying hospitality management for a year, then decided that wasn't for me and pivoted back into architecture. I applied to London through the UCAS system and then got accepted to University of Greenwich for my part 1, and then so I studied architecture then. Then I used to work during the summers at David Collins, who's an Irish interior designer based in London. I used to work at his studio during the summers, and then when I finished, I probably worked for another 2 years there. And I guess that's when I first really got interested in interiors. And then there was kind of no looking back then. And then
I guess it was like a really glamorous world, right? He had amazing clients.
Yeah. He was designing like for Madonna, and like he was doing Tom Ford, and he did the Wolseley restaurant, and he was kind of at the top of his game at the time. So it was an amazing window into this world, this incredible world. And then I worked for I worked for Martin Brunitsky, who's another sort of big restaurant designer. I took a year out and worked for a lady called Annabelle Seldorf in New York, she's a very big architect in the art world as well. She does a lot of work for David's Warner Gallery, Hauser and Wirth. She did the Neue Gallery as well, which is the post or pre-war Austrian art. It's just north of the Guggenheim on Fifth Ave. It's where the Klimt is actually, but she did the renovation of that. So she's very well known in the art world as the architect kind of. But I worked for her for a year, and that was another kind of glimpse into. She had an interiors department as well, actually, which I was quite into. And actually, we're collaborating with her now in another project in New York. So I've kept in touch with her, but
she's kind of acted almost like a mentor somewhat. She's been amazing, and she wrote the foreword in the book that we released earlier this year.
Yeah,
she's an incredible woman. Yeah, that's really encouraged you throughout your career.
And then I guess I worked for 2 years for a company called Louis Laplace in Paris. And then that led me to kind of setting up on my own in 2013.
2013. Now, James, you took a slightly different path.
I sure did.
Tell us about it.
So I did an arts degree in university. I did not want to go to college at all, but my mother insisted that I did something. Probably rightly so, and I got to have an incredible university experience. And so by the skin of my teeth got an arts degree, but always wanted to be a music artist. And so that's what I did for my 20s. And I used to be in a band called Bitches with Wolves, and we had so much fun going up and down the country and releasing music and playing festivals and doing all of those things. And then I moved over to London and continued over there and really kept doing that till I turned about 30. But you know, music, like art, is it's very hard for it to be your main career unless you're really at the top of your game and you're earning, and then there's no real middleman in it. And I basically, I turned 30, realized that I wasn't Beyonce Knowles, although I do have good legs, Alan. And
I'll take your word for it.
And I decided that I'd kind of come up against a wall. I couldn't progress any further really with it, and I needed to pivot. So I started then from scratch working in fashion as an intern for a label called House of Holland, and really restarted everything. And then Brian's business was beginning to get busier, and you needed help with like a kind of a busy patch that you had. And then I kind of joined for,
I came on board for 2 months.
2 months, and then
I never left.
I never left. Yeah.
Oh, was that a long time ago?
That would have been
7 years ago.
8 years ago.
Oh, right. Okay. Quite a while. So you're now commercial director.
Yes.
And can you give me a flavor of what that entails?
Well, I guess it's everything to do with the business, from like organization, dealing with the finances, dealing with HR, press, marketing, all of those things, new business. It's basically every element of the business that isn't really fully creative, although I do get to participate somewhat on the creative as well, which is great. But it's running a company of 70 people, or 3 companies, which I never saw in the tea leaves, but I really enjoy it. It's amazing, very fulfilling job to get to do.
So you obviously work extremely well together because you have that particular discipline, and then Bryan comes in with a different skill set, if you like.
Yes.
Can I ask you, what is that process? If somebody comes along to you and says, look, I want you to do a makeover on my house or apartment or whatever it is, what is the process?
I guess the process is, I guess getting to know the client is really important. I think you kind of need any successful project is based on a good relationship. And I think you really have to, and I think also, I think picking the right, not that we can pick and choose our projects really, but at the same time, you kind of need to make sure you're aligned. You get a sense sometimes where you feel if it's not going to work. So you think you have to trust your gut on that as well, because it's a long relationship, I guess. So if it doesn't quite align, then it can be not a great place. But I guess that's part of it as well, is trying to figure out what's the right fit. So you kind of need to work that out quite early on. But then I guess it's building a good relationship with the client. At the end of the day, it's their house, it's their dream, it's their vision. You kind of we're just the conduit, I guess, to get them to that place. And yeah, I guess then we have a big team. The projects get allocated to a team in the office, and then I'm very closely involved. But then we work communally as a studio then to realize the dream, I guess.
Okay, so you would literally allocate a project to a design team?
Yes. So in London, I think there's 3 main design teams, and there's 2 in New York. And each project that comes in then gets allocated to a team. And then I'm very involved in all the client meetings and the creative, but then obviously day-to-day running of the project has to be done by someone. And then, that team then would run the project.
And tell me, are you defined by a particular style, or does your style really come to being through, as you said, building a relationship with the client where you get to know them so well, you know what they want?
Yeah, and actually, I guess we also we try to approach each project differently with fresh eyes. And even if it's for the same client, we'll try and drill into a concept depending on where if it's residential or it's commercial. We try and drill into a concept based on the location, if it's a historic building, the cultural context. We try and sort of build out from that. So it kind of then it keeps work probably more interesting for us, but also keeps the end result feeling fresh and not cut and pasting basically for each project.
I know.
So,
but also, I guess we look at it like it's a collaboration as well. We're not dictatorial in how we work with our clients. So the more the client puts into it, actually, the better the result, because it takes you in different directions that you mightn't have ever thought you would go into. And that's what makes it exciting and makes it really fun, right?
And you also want the clients to feel that they're involved as well. It's a journey basically, and you're bringing them on it as well. And it's a much more enjoyable process for them if they feel they have an input. And
of course. And I mean, you must have a huge list of artisans and craftspeople, for your own design work, never mind anything else. How do you actually come about that? Do people come to you, or do you reach out to other people?
You sort of come across people. Yeah, you build a big Rolodex of we love to work with artisans. I think that's what really sets projects apart. If you have a really good metal worker or a really good glass artist, or someone that can do like plaster walls or like stucco finish, or that's really what layers a project. So I guess we're always on the lookout. I guess you come across them. We work with a lot of Irish artisans as well, actually, which we try to support as much as possible, because I think there's amazing talent in Ireland and
unbelievable craft in Ireland. Yeah.
But I guess we're always reading, I guess, magazines, and like if you see a project featured, a lot of times they'll list who they work with, and I think we're constantly, and everyone in the office, I guess, is always kind of checking out. Like if we have a project in Paris, you're like, if you come across a good metal worker or a good, like I was literally this morning looking up a plaster specialist in Paris for a project. But and actually Instagram, you can actually come across, sometimes you see projects and then they're tagged in it, and then you can see their work. But
Instagram is amazing. It really makes things very democratic. Like you can communicate with and get clients through Instagram and reach people that normally you would never have any access to. It's amazing the synergy that it creates.
Sure, yeah. Because I was going to ask you that. I mean, I know that there are various fairs you go to. Is that how you would kind of get your contacts? And I mean, are you employed by architects, for instance?
We never usually get employed directly by architects.
You know.
It's normally the client will employ us, and then but a few times we have brought architects on board actually for projects. Actually, we've been but it's normally directly with the client you'll have the relationship with. Actually, sorry, that's not true. We're working on like I said earlier, working on a cafe at the Frick Gallery in New York, the Frick Museum, and that's with True Annabelle Seldorf, who a couple years ago she brought us on board. So we're doing the which will be a big one for us in New York. It's quite revered, the Frick, I think, so it'll be a nice one to be involved in.
Fantastic. And are there any ones that really stand out in your memory as being, my God, that was an incredible project?
I guess
or is that like saying which is your favorite child?
We'd worked on a house in Paris actually.
That was amazing.
Which was a 1920s house that was designed by the same architect that designed the Grand Palais Museum. So it was like almost like a mini version of the Grand Palais, but I've never seen a house with proportions more beautiful. Like it was really grand proportions, but still felt not too big to be. It was still a house.
It still felt you could create a sense of coziness and comfort in it.
Sure.
And I guess the opportunity to work with all of them, the master craftsmen in Paris, was unbelievable. And
you have amazing ateliers of like metal workers, decorators, plaster people, there are ateliers that have existed for like hundreds of years, so like all this kind of knowledge passed down, and they're just attention to detail, and it's an incredible and I guess the whole process of that project was really interesting.
And then I guess another really big project for us would have been the Berkeley Bar, which is one of which is the first hospitality project we did in London. And that really transformed our business. I think it really put us on the map for hospitality work, and brought us up to a whole other level, and opened the door for so much other fantastic future work that we now get to do. So that was
won Bar of the Year as well in the Restaurant and Bar Design Award. So I think that kind of then just opened a lot of other doors for us.
Yeah. Actually, talking about that, there is another accolade that you have, and that is being chosen as one of the top 500 designers in the world from the Architectural Digest.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty hot, isn't it?
Yeah, the AD 100. We got accepted last year into that list, which we were.
It's a huge honor.
We were, it really opens a lot of doors for us as well in New York, because a lot of times if you're on the AD 100 list, they will only really work with people that are on the AD 100 list.
Really?
So, especially for residential work, you sort of need to be on that list to be kind of recognized. So we were delighted.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure your clients are lovely people, but you're bound to have come across somebody who's a pain in the arse. Have you? You don't need to mention names.
Absolutely not. Everybody's
no. Hang on a second, James. You know full well. Is there, not mentioning names, but is there a project where you said, "I'd rather we never got near that"?
Yes, there definitely is. But I think you can. There's always a way to work around. And like you can always get to. We very rarely, almost. I think only maybe one or two cases in 13 years or 12 years of the studio where that's actually happened. I think you might run through difficult patches, but I think you can always sort of get it back on track. I think, again, communication and sort of a lot of times you have to bite your tongue and sort of just put the blinkers on and just go for it. But I guess that's an art form in itself, as well as being able to just coast.
Usually people are everybody's very respectful of one another. But obviously it's a long life, Alan. You do run into the odd person here and there, but it's not really happened too much.
It's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
And you have the skills to get around.
Yeah. I think key is to sort of manage expectations as well. I think we've learned from our kind of mistakes over the years. It's like I think you have to be very clear on your deliverables at the start, and almost have a roadmap for each client, and be like, this is when you're going to move into the house or to whatever project, and then these are the key dates. And if we stick to these, and if everyone knows, so I guess it's just managing expectations from both sides.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Look, let's go straight into having a look at some of your projects. Now, there are 9, as I mentioned, and there are sort of 2 to 3 slides in each one. It might appear a lot, but that's why I wanted to break it down. There are only 9 projects out of the many that you've done. So the first project we're going to be talking about is the Berkeley Hotel, and it's the bar and restaurant, isn't that right?
Yeah. So yeah, this was one of our first hospitality projects in London. And it was also, I guess, one of the first projects we designed everything from the furniture to the lighting to the plaster work. It was kind of literally everything within the space we designed kind of from scratch. So it was a really special project, I think, for us in that sense.
Also, I guess the pitch was, it was such a huge opportunity for us that we did all of the work ahead of the first pitch meeting as well, and everything down to the render. So all the lighting, everything you see, as Bryan said, had been designed for that one meeting.
And it was actually due to it was Paddy McKillen was involved with Maybourne at the time, who was an incredible guy to work with. He an unbelievable patron of the arts and patron of the arts, but he we met him kind of by chance, and we were chatting to him, and then he said, I have this space in the Berkeley Hotel, which it was kind of like a meeting room, and he's like, I've had a few people pitch ideas for it, but I'm not happy. And he's like, would you guys be interested in just pitching an idea? So that, as James said, then we went kind of all guns blazing. We had like, for the first meeting, we had even like modeled up CGIs of the space. And
oh, really? Yeah.
And he said he normally doesn't approve stuff straight off from, but he says he normally changes stuff, but he actually kind of
he signed off everything.
Really?
Fully. So we kind of, and then the CGIs almost, I looked, these are the photographs of the finished thing, but they were almost identical.
Yeah.
Are they? Yeah. So again, you know, for instance, the lamps there, which are beautiful looking, is that something you would have designed?
Yeah, they were sort of inspired by, we were looking at kind of Venetian lighting from the 20s and 30s and 40s, I guess. And I guess, yeah, that was kind of our inspiration. We were kind of looking at, and then Carlo Scarpa, the architect, I think we were looking at. We did have a narrative about we kind of drilled into the concept of the
Grenadier Guards and the Duke of Wellington, because that's where that was the original site of his barracks.
Oh, really?
And then the barracks moved nearby from here to nearby, and they built this brutalist building. So we were sort of pulling some inspiration from the brutalist nature of the new building, and also the joiners we work with. I found, well, they got access to this. There was a 300-year-old walnut tree that naturally blew down in a storm that they managed to get hold of. And they were like, we've got this incredible wood from this tree, if you could sell it to your clients. So we managed to convince them to go with this. But it turned out that the tree was from this estate called the Fulbeck Estate. And it was actually where the Duke of Wellington wooed his wife, and then the Duke of Wellington set up the Grenadier Guards, which was on this site. So we were kind of linking it back. So then we ended up, the plaster relief that runs around the top of the room tells the story of this tree. So like the relief.
It originally told the story of their romance, but then we discovered that she was 13 when she was being wooed or something. So in a 21st century lens, didn't quite compute. So then we decided to tell the life story of the tree and really honor the tree instead.
That's wonderful, though. Absolutely wonderful. Now, this, I have to say, is my favorite image. And I normally don't say that, but there's just something about it.
So this was the snug in the same bar, but I think we were trying to, historically, the snug was where women were banished to, and they had to sit separately from the men. So I think we tried to turn that on its head and make this the most glamorous room and the kind of exciting room, and almost celebrate femininity, I think, in this room. So that was kind of...
Is it backlit, Bryan?
No, there's an LED behind the banquette that sort of lights it upwards. But but it was a mural artist called T.M. Davy, who's based in New York.
And we've done a lot of work with now.
Since, he came over, and we pitched him to the group as well, and they were on board for getting him over, so he came and did this for us.
I think I saw a photograph of him actually painting it.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't think we have that.
This image of this bar really went all over the world for us and really kind of put our name out there in a huge way. So it's a favorite image of ours as well.
Oh, good. I'm delighted to hear that. And Claridge's, which is part of the same network of hotels of Paddy McKillen. And this is the dining room and an inset of the door. Talk to me about that.
So the previous iteration of the restaurant, it was a chef called Daniel Hum, New York chef, was here for about 3 or 4 years. They had done, so his iteration was like almost like a white box. They had stripped out a lot of the original features and built down a ceiling. And then the relationship with him and Claridge's kind of broke down. I think he changed all the group, or he changed the offering to vegan without telling the hotel, and they were like, "This is our main restaurant. You can't."
Yeah.
So they, anyway, the hotel asked us to then come on board to turn it back into kind of an all-day brasserie style restaurant, but still feeling kind of elevated. So I guess we looked at a lot of old black and white photos of how the restaurant was when it was first built. And found a lot of the original like plaster work, and so I guess it was all put back to what it originally was, with a lot of additions, I guess, but architecturally went back to what it originally was. The door is new, and we took the shield of Claridge's
which is
press, and it's in the skylights in the ceiling. It's the door. So we use that as our inspiration, and it's kind of that motif appears. It's in the skylights, in the door, and it's also on the front of the bar. But so, and then I guess the rest of it, we designed the banquettes. Having the kind of fixed seating in the center kind of helps anchor a space, I think, and
because it's very big. And but prior to this, it felt like a spaceship with a load of conference tables in the middle of it. It just had a very strange kind of soul. So the banquets really bring it in and root it.
And then we designed these kind of slightly Art Deco inspired mirrors then that hang on the walls behind, and the wall lights are replicas of what the original wall lights that existed. And then we did these little sort of cafe curtains to give a bit of privacy between the booths. And then we designed these little kind of Lalique inspired lamps then that sit sort of at the back of each banquet.
And you can't see it here, but all the lights have little cabochon jewels in them as well. They're beautiful.
In the brasswork.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extraordinary that every single piece is tailor-made to your design.
And the chairs as well. We prototyped a lot of versions of this chair. Again, it was our take on a bistro chair. So the bent wood, but we kind of added the little brass caps and just kind of embellishing it a little bit to
beautiful. And is that Ramsay's at the moment? Does Ramsay run that?
It was Ramsay
like 10 years ago, maybe.
And actually, weirdly, that's where my parents brought me there for my graduation dinner when I graduated from university in London. And
so it was
but then we went to the opening. I brought mum and dad to the opening of this when it opened, and by pure coincidence, I actually forgot until the night but they put us by pure coincidence, they put us sitting in the exact same table that we sat at for my graduation. So it was kind of a nice sort of a full circle moment.
Sure.
And so this is the bar. Before that, traditionally this is actually would have been called the Royal Booth. And it was where the Queen Mother would come for lunch, and she would come 3 times a week. And every time she came into the hotel, they would play the Teddy Bears Picnic for her, some joke that they had. And she would sit there and everybody would kind of watch her, and she would get sloshed, basically. So, the
bar front then has that same motif again, that shields that's kind of taken from the Claridge's crest.
Yeah.
Yes. That's fantastic.
And you can kind of see the little stone cabochons in the light there, actually, and under the shade.
And okay. I can see that now. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, I did mention in one of my emails that there's the odd super yacht thrown in. And we're going to see one of them called Firebird, and we have a few slides on this.
So this was a yacht that our client bought that was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And it was previously owned by a Russian oligarch. So it was quite heavy in the interiors. It was lots of kind of heavy paneling, kind of gilded furniture. So I guess our task was to how do you make it feel more current? The clients were a younger couple, and they wanted it to feel kind of, and they were big into art actually as well. So, and actually his wife is an artist. So we were tasked with trying to modernize the boat, I guess. So the paneling was incredible, which we actually maintained. Initially, we were going to paint out the paneling, but then I guess we decided that we simplified the ceilings. Previously were very kind of gold gills, and so what we did was we did this more contemporary ceiling, kept the kind of the walnut or the mahogany paneling, and then went much more contemporary with the furniture. And then we kind of felt it gave a nice kind of juxtaposition. And just because the quality of the wood was so amazing, that was all book matched and really well made, that it was almost a shame to paint over it. So I guess this is how we kind of rationalized it.
It was really beautiful, almost like a buttery texture to it. It was so smooth. So it would have been a real shame. Yeah.
That table is interesting.
Yeah, we designed that actually. It actually pivots so that
I was just wondering that.
Yeah. So if you're sitting in let's say the blue armchairs, you can actually move the leaves. They pivot from the center so they can move out more towards you.
Very interesting.
And they also really liked some of the work we had done at Claridge's. So the bar was kind of inspired a little bit by the kind of more deco work we had done at Claridge's. The more, I guess, more contemporary take on it. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And actually, you can't really see
a different area now.
Well, the bar on the left is that same room, but did the glass. Actually, you can't really see it there, but it's it has like a feather motif because they named the bird Firebird after I guess Phoenix from the Flames.
Phoenix, yeah.
But we kind of subtly then layered in feather motifs in lots of different places, so that you can't see it in this image, but actually that back bar has a kind of it's a cast glass with sort of like a feather motif. So we lots of
see that. Yes, actually, it is not. It could be in this. There is it.
It's in the light box in the bar in the background. Sort of like it's that box that surrounds the bar, that light box. So
but the carpet is quite feathery as well.
Yeah, so we kind of subtly referenced it kind of throughout.
Yeah. Okay.
And this previously was a dining room, and they didn't really want a formal dining room. So we kind of made it an office with this multifunctional day bed, which can be moved around. And that the left-hand side opens up as a balcony as well. This was probably where we did the most intervention. This was a full strip. This was the top of the boat. It previously was a kind of a winter room, I guess they called it, but then they wanted to make this a gym basically. So we designed new paneling, new glazing on either side, and this was the kind of heaviest intervention.
And new doors, which look so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. And that goes out to what I guess is this picture.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what actually is quite great about this shoot is that you wouldn't normally get a super yacht shot in a Nordic fjord, and it actually adds such a nice dimension to it. Makes it quite moody and fabulous.
Yes. It's normally in the Caribbean or somewhere they're shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it is an unusual situation for it to be in. Yeah.
It grounds it.
Yes. Now this is going on to the Maybourne in Riviera.
So this was also part of the Claridge's group. It was a new build hotel, I guess, on the cliffs overlooking Monaco, but in France, in Roquebrune, Cap Martin, which is just above Monaco. And there was an existing hotel that they bought and sort of highly renovated. So it was more or less a complete new build. So we were brought on board to do most of the public spaces and maybe about 30% or 40% of the bedrooms. And it was a really interesting project. Eileen Gray's house and Le Corbusier's house are very nearby. So I think we took a lot of our inspiration from Eileen Gray and Le Corbusier. So it was very kind of modernist, clean lines, and a lot of the color palette then. The setting of the hotel is incredible. It's really high up on the cliff looking out over the sea. So we took a lot of the color references from either the dawn or the sunset, kind of those kind of pinks and blues, and so very uplifting uh,
and then the paneling kind of ripples to mimic the waves, which are just in front of you. And
yes,
there's the glass screen here. So this is the snug to the bar. And it twinkles beautifully at night, and it's actually like a reimagining of a Le Corbusier tapestry. Yeah.
Okay. Now this, I thought when I got it first, I thought, oh, this is someone's pad, but it's actually a fair.
Yes,
it's a
Tell me about the
fair.
fair.
So PAD, I think, started in Paris. I think it stands for Pavilion of Art and Design.
Yeah.
All right.
And now there's PAD Paris, PAD London, PAD Saint-Tropez, I think, and
there's other ones. Yeah,
but it runs in London the same weekend as Frieze, and it's basically furniture galleries, in an exhibition, basically in Berkeley Square.
It's like a furniture version of Frieze, basically. It's Frieze for furniture. So, for us to be able to exhibit at it, it's like the largest honor ever, especially considering that our furniture business at this stage was literally only a year old. I mean, it's now just over a year, but so a huge honor for us to get to show our creativity there, and felt like an amazing achievement for us, right?
And so basically we design a lot of furniture and lighting for our projects, and we've done so for the last sort of since we started. So I think we had all these pieces that we really loved, and we decided to just combine it together into a collection. And like the mirror there, for example, was what we designed. It's a version of the one we designed for Claridge's, and so it was a
and tell me about the chairs, because I rather like those, just on the left-hand side.
They're called the Spring, and they are really comfortable. They which is most important. One of the things that we really worked on actually was the rake of all our furniture. So we got this amazing chair in that kind of figures out that when you're designing something, how high or low the seat will be. You can then figure out where the back of it's going to hit you. And we did a version for these originally for, was it Claridge's?
For one of the suites in Claridge's.
One of the suites in Claridge's, and then we continued working on it and honing down the shape. And so it's got a metal frame to it, and it's like a spring motif in the back.
And that material that's around the edge of the chair.
It's wrought iron.
Oh, is it wrought iron?
And then it's a sheepskin actual. Yeah. So it actually, it feels very cozy when you're sitting in it. And we kind of liked the hardness of the wrought iron against the softness of the sheepskin.
Yes.
So it's really playful, but it's also quite chic as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I did mention that you do commission Irish artists.
Oh, yes.
Within your work, and I asked a few people if they could recognize any Irish artist whose work appears as part of one of your designs. And I think I've got one I picked out. I think it's Dennis Kelly, who's an artist. Dennis, you win the book. Well done. Here's the book. Ta-da. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, fabulous.
So, well done on that. So tell me, it's obviously Cormac Boydell. Tell me about how you got to meet him and why you incorporated his work.
So he's actually a friend of my mum and dad. My mum was a huge fan of his for years. I think we have a lot of Cormac Boydells at home in Kenmare. But and he lives further down the Beara Peninsula from where we live. I've always been obsessed with his plates as well. And his wife is also a really talented artist. They're amazing people. So we really like the idea of kind of celebrating him, and we designed this cabinet then kind of almost around his pieces. So we call it the Boydell as well. And it's just a sideboard. It's leather. You open it up and it's all fully leather in the inside. And it has a lava stone top, and it can come in different sizes. And
beautiful. So this is all furniture that you would have shown at the exhibition.
Yeah, this is actually from the exhibition. Yeah, so we designed the rug as well. We did this sort of like sketchy motif kind of on the rug, and
then the coffee table it's a gradiated hand-poured resin called the pond. So you actually can't quite see it here, but it's quite like a deep shade of blue in the middle, and then it kind of gradiates out to this lighter green, which is really fun. And then the mirror at the back is called the aura, which makes you look a little bit like a saint almost, I think, when you look into it.
Yes.
And then to the right there is a silver and ruby cabochon lamp called the Cosmo, after our son.
Very
So
good.
so yeah.
Lovely. And do I see your book there on the table?
You do, yeah. And actually the cover of that book, there's a slipcase. I have it here.
Do you have a copy?
It's it is the same artist, TM Davy, who we put this on the slipcase. And actually the graphics of the book were the design of the book was done by my brother. He's a graphic designer.
Incredible graphic designer.
His company is called Anchor Studio. They're based in Kenmare, actually. Him and his wife.
Based in Kenmare, but work internationally. Like they do work in Miami. They worked with us on doing all the branding for the Maybourne Riviera. They're like a really incredible studio.
And they relocated from Dublin to Kenmare just pre-COVID, and there's an amazing actual design hub of people in Kenmare now, actually.
Isn't it? It's wonderful. I love the idea of these sort of companies that are quietly working away, but their tentacles stretch globally.
Exactly.
I just love that idea, you know. Okay, and then we're going on to the Painter's Room in Claridge's. Interesting title given our viewers.
So it was a
storage cupboard.
It kind of connects to the ballroom. So I think our brief was to create a cocktail bar that links the hotel and the ballroom of Claridge's, but it can be closed off. If you have an event in the ballroom, you can close it off from one side and have it, or vice versa. But it's become a really popular cocktail bar for the main hotel. And we collaborated with Annie Morris, the artist, to do the mural, which kind of wraps, you can kind of see it, it's a little bit faint, but the mural wraps all the way around. And then she also did the stained glass window. The room originally was called the Painted Room, because it had, way back in the 20s, it had like these murals of trees that wrapped around. It was always the same shaped room, but then had just over the years become just used as a storage room. And it was Paddy McKillen as well had the idea to turn it back into a bar, and asked us to kind of reimagine what kind of 21st century Art Deco could feel like. So we took, again, a lot of our cues from the Deco period of the hotel, and then it's called the Painter's Room as opposed to the Painted Room, and we collabed with Annie Morris then to really make it feel, referencing back to kind of how it was, I guess, but a contemporary take.
And also all of that is hand painted. It's not as if you created a wallpaper.
No, she came in and she hand painted it onto the walls. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful work.
And it's pink onyx, the pink onyx and white onyx from Iran. The stones.
Okay. Now we're heading off to Paris. And whilst we never mention who your clients are, confidential, we do know that this was owned by Bernard Arnault.
Exactly.
This was his, etc., etc.
Yeah. And actually a funny story is someone contacted me on Instagram after this was published, like after we had finished it, and he'd seen a picture. Someone had contacted me saying, I really like the bed that's in the master bedroom. Can I buy it? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's our design, but I'm sure we could. This is before we had a furniture collection. And he was like, is there somewhere I could see it? And I was like, well, this house is in Paris. You could come and see it. I can arrange it with the owners. I'm sure it'll be fine. Then he was like, okay, great. He lived in Paris as well. He's like, so I sent him the address. I was like, I'm going to be there in 2 weeks' time. I can meet you there. He's like, that's so weird. That's the house I grew up in. And it turned out to be Bernard Arnault's son, who had just randomly contacted through Instagram saying he liked the beds, which is this.
And that's the bed, is it?
Yeah. So we ended up showing him around the house that was
that was his.
It was his house, basically, when he was growing up.
And then also you can see in the previous image, just on the left, there's artwork by Abigail O'Brien, who's on the call, and my incredible mum. The red piece there.
There was two of the Bellas either side of the door.
Which
there was
were
one
fabulous.
In blue and one in red.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Which are incredible.
Yeah, pity we don't have one of those there. But anyway,
And then this was
sorry,
the bed.
we just go back to that again. Yeah.
So this was the master bed. Yeah, it was this was a really fun project. I mean, it was a tough project, but it was an amazing project. But it was a special one because again, this was, I guess, put us on the map a lot for our residential work as
Totally,
well.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And that's the bathroom.
The bathroom, yeah. So again, all of this was the ground floor had a lot of original paneling, but the first and second floor had nothing. It was completely stripped out by the previous owners, I think, at some point. So we had to put everything back. So we did a lot of research on houses of the period in Paris, and down to like the size of the correct floorboard that you should use, and the skirtings and the panel details and all of that. So
yeah.
And then
Can I just ask? Yeah,
sorry.
go on. No, carry
on. And then I guess the bathroom was a kind of an imagining. The bathrooms at the time were tiled generally, but I think we kind of went more on the marble route. But yeah.
Just on a logistical point, when you're doing something like that in Paris, where you don't have an office as such, do you have to bring teams over and put them up? And
luckily, Evelyn, who's been on board from day one in our office, and Evelyn and I previously worked together in Paris, but she's Irish, but grew up in Brussels. But she's fluent in French. So I guess that was a godsend on this project because she was able to, so all the trades we worked in were French. So like all of, bar the marble, actually, the marble was an Irish company that actually came over and did this for us, but everyone else were French companies. And she was able to,
keep them all in check. It was amazing.
And heavy-handed.
Because she was like 26 at the time, and she was even younger, and she was the boss of the site, and she really was able to hold herself in quite a chauvinistic space at times, and she's an amazing woman. Yeah,
fantastic. So here we're looking at the kitchen, I think, aren't we?
Yeah,
and then out onto this garden.
Yeah. And then it opened back onto this really big garden for Paris it was a really big garden. And then behind that you had Jardin de Ranelagh, which is a park. And then behind that was Bois de Boulogne. So it kind of, when you stood in the living room, it looked like your garden went on for miles, basically. So it was kind of amazing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Pembridge. This is in Notting Hill, I think, is it?
It is. It's Pembridge Square. It was a young couple relocating from America back to London, and we were tasked with sort of modernizing their home and making it feel. It's a beautiful proportioned house, like palatial proportions on Pembridge Square. So it was. We really enjoyed
the other aspect of it, which I love.
This was the kind of cozy study. So we played with this sort of blue high lacquer and this kind of orange on the ceiling.
And that chair on the bottom right.
That's very cool, yeah.
It's an Art Deco chair.
Gorgeous. So the last one we're going to look at is the Red Room at the Connaught.
And this again was another collab with artists. It was, I guess, one of the first pieces was the I Am Rouge, which is a piece by Louise Bourgeois that was picked for the bar. And then I think then the idea was to call it the Red Room. And I think the idea was that all the art would have some link to red, I think was the idea. And all female, all female artists.
The press release said all female, but actually the stained glass is by Brian Clark.
The hotel actually did the press release, and they did a big
thing about it.
All female
honorary
artists,
woman.
Not to Brian Clark's
much to his chagrin, he was raging.
And rightly so, I guess. But
rightly so.
Brian Clark is a very well-known British stained glass artist, so he did the two pieces either side of the fireplace. We worked quite closely with him to and I guess the brief then was to try and make it feel like it was an art collector's sitting room almost. It's a speakeasy. There's no natural light actually, so then that was kind of partly the reason we put in the stained glass, to kind of give you the sense. And there's windows that we found that were blocked up. They didn't look anywhere. They were blocked up from behind, but we found the old sash windows, so we incorporated those back in and backlit them with LED lighting as well. So it was a tricky space to design because there was no natural light, but we kind of made it work.
And that's another aspect of the same.
Yeah, that's the bar.
We worked with a guy called Owen Turner, who's a glass artist based down in Cork. Amazing glass artist, but he made the glass for the gantry, which is over the bar. And
beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
And then that's the final one we're going to show. Some detail there on the carpet.
Yeah, so we designed the carpet as well, actually, and that we've then since then put it into our TV room in our house.
So. Yeah, we loved it so much.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Right. So we're going to have a Q&A now, but just before we start that, I'm just going to check if there are any comments. And but as I'm looking through those, have you ever been in a situation where you've actually had to design something around a work of art? So in other words, say you had a client who had a masterpiece of whatever they absolutely adored. They said, now you're to design this room, but this is the focal point.
The Red Room.
Yeah, I guess the Red Room there, that Louise Bourgeois was the kind of the first piece. It was another Paddy McKillen project, who had incredible taste, or has incredible taste in art and great connections in the art world.
Yeah.
So he had access to this I Am Rouge piece, I think it was through Hauser and Wirth. And I think then that sort of set the framework for the concept for the rest of the bar.
Because I did see a photograph that you sent. No, you didn't send me. I think I saw it on your site, and it's a Fifth Avenue apartment.
Oh,
and
yeah.
A very dominant picture in that room.
Oh,
I think it's a woman's face.
Yeah, it's
Ida
Applebrug. It's another Hauser and Wirth artist, actually. So we sourced a lot of the art for that client for that project. And Ida Applebrug is I'm kind of obsessed with her art. I think she was a Holocaust survivor. Her work is incredible. It's quite dark and
very dark.
And I think it was that piece is called the Mona Lisa. But it's a kind of a screaming face almost. So it is quite. And then next to it, actually, there was a little Marlene Dumas head as well, or little face as well. So that was also kind of screaming as well. But they work in the space.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I'll read some comments before we go out to ask people if they'd like to say anything directly. But Catherine Gagan says, "Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous." The paintings in the snug at the Berkeley. What is it painted on?
It was directly on the wall, actually. The wall curved.
It looks like glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
On plaster.
A bit of a cheeky question, but do you find that your friends feel you've such a high bar of taste and design that they're worried about having you over to visit them in their homes? You know what? That actually occurred to me.
I mean, if you saw the state of our apartment this morning.
There's nothing to worry about.
Our little boy has literally his toys everywhere. And
I've just realized who that is. It's my wife. That's good.
When are you having us over?
Well, no, I'll see. I'll get back to you on that. Okay, what else? Jane, such beautiful spaces. Do you ever wish you could keep them unused, or you prefer seeing them filled with people, particularly the hotel public spaces?
It's great seeing people. I mean, I personally find it kind of hard for a while to go to space. I think you're always seeing the snags. So if you go to a space that you've done, you're like, oh, shouldn't have picked that fabric, because I don't know. And there you're kind of most critical yourself, or you're spotting things which no one else will spot. But it is great though seeing spaces used, and it's great seeing, you picture in your head how people are going to inhabit the spaces. So actually seeing it, I find that with Claridge's restaurant, we go to Claridge's restaurant quite a bit, but seeing it used really kind of brings it to life.
And see people respond so positively to it is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Una says, just blown away, an incredible interview. Congratulations, Bryan and James. Really special designs. I'm off to get your book.
This thank you.
Such a special window into your extraordinary world. Such beauty. Thank you. Thanks, Una. Olivier Cornet. Great interview, great work, Bryan and James. You mentioned architecture and design from the 20s and 30s. It so happens that the Bloomsday group exhibition at my gallery this year will be an artist's answer to Art Deco. This year is the 100th anniversary of the 1925 Paris Art Deco Expo, and James Joyce Ulysses was published in the Art Deco period. Do drop in if you're in Dublin. The show will run all summer. There you are.
Absolutely,
absolutely would love that.
Incredible.
Yeah. Una says, really inspiring and beautiful design. Katie, when you walk into a room, if it is quite old and dark and in need of huge change, do you find it difficult to imagine how it's going to look? Or does your imagination start firing with ideas straight away?
I think I almost like when it needs, I love trying to see past. And I think that's part of I think the more work it needs, the better in a way, because I think we really enjoy kind of just visualizing what it could be and the potential of a space.
Yeah.
It's part of the whole thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Morris Quillen says, incredible work. Kate, I love the fact that there's a story behind even the wood you're using for the first project. And once it's done, people create their own stories in these rooms. That's lovely, yeah. There's something so magic about being the designers of these projects. You've a seriously generous skill. That's my daughter. My baby daughter. Fiona Collins, love hearing the stories of what might have influenced your designs. Okay, I think that's it. So is there anybody who'd like to say anything in person? You should be able to unmute yourselves now. And please, after you do that, remute yourselves so it doesn't interfere with the camera running all over the place. So if anyone would like to say something. Abigail, I do see that you've unmuted yourself.
Good morning. How are my gorgeous boys?
Hi, Abigail. How are you?
You're looking very well, matching.
Coordinated.
We didn't. We actually just realized when we sat down that and we did the same on Wednesday. We were doing another thing, filming on Wednesday, and we were both wearing head to toe white. But we didn't realize until we started that.
But we both liked our outfits too much that neither of us were willing to change. Yeah. So we're like, we just have to go with it.
Well, it works very well.
Thank you.
I mean, I was listening. I think it's fantastic work, absolutely incredible work. And it gives me huge pride to know that, you're mine, both of you. And I was going to say, James, I'm fascinated because I remember when you were growing up, if we gave you the budget for the weekend food when I went away, it would be gone on a pair of shoes, or I mean, how do you keep control of that now?
I mean, that hasn't changed.
I guess, well, in what way? The budget with projects?
Yeah, I mean, do you go over budget? The way you see on grand designs, everybody's in bits by the end of it because it's probably twice as much as it was supposed to be originally.
Well, value engineering is a real natural and normal part of the process. So you obviously always reach for the stars and then have to find a way to land on the moon.
But also, I guess you're not really controlling the finances of the project.
No.
You're more on sort of fee proposals. So you're
the finances of the business, basically.
The business, I guess.
More so than the finances of the project. But I guess we did, for PAD, we were in charge of the finances, and we had a very strict budget that we had to adhere to. And we did go over a little bit on the budget, but not too much.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody like me, a regular person, wanted to do their sitting room and they had a budget of, whatever, 20 grand, can you live with that? Can you work within that?
Yeah.
That would be given to the design, like the head designers, that then they would then have to work in that budget, but they definitely would. Yeah. Because then, if we're pitching ideas to clients and we're doing, like, there's a spreadsheet, and if whatever the budget is then gets broken down to, it's like, for this armchair you've only got 5 grand, so we're showing you options that are 5 grand. Or
Great. Well, listen, you're doing brilliantly. It's an awful pity Cosmo's a messer and he couldn't be there this morning. I'd have enjoyed seeing my grandson.
For the next one.
We've got nothing done.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Abigail. Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment?
Hi, Alan.
Catherine. Hi there, Catherine.
Really enjoyed that. Everything was just so beautiful.
Thank you, Catherine.
Fantastic. I just want to ask you, what do you think about the trends in visual art, in interior design at the moment? Seems to be less of it around, to me.
In terms of, well, I guess from our side, we love incorporating art as much as we can.
Trends.
Oh, what trends?
What trends? I guess things are moving. The world moves so fast now, even if you were to look at it in fashion as well, like trends don't tend to exist the same way that they did, because everything is happening at such pace and such speed that micro trends then begin to exist, and then they exist for shorter periods of time. So it's much harder for us to all anchor on to one thing.
Digital art, I think, was popping up quite a bit.
Yeah.
In 2
NFTs.
years ago. Yeah, but I think that seems to have disappeared a little bit again.
Thank God.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, I think it kind of cheapens things a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
Catherine, just following on from that and talking about trends, do you find a big difference between sort of the client demands or wishes or whatever you want to call it in the UK stroke Ireland versus the States and indeed elsewhere?
Yeah, I kind of I guess the States, everything is bigger. It's like, yeah.
But James was saying that they're kind of easier to deal with in certain ways. Not
Well,
easier is probably the wrong word.
I guess that they have it's more part of their tapestry to work with designers. So it's and also they're less risk adverse to going for things and for spending money. But then sometimes they can be a bit more conservative. But it really just depends.
Okay. Yeah.
Just ask, Bryan, you just started to say there that you you're very interested in using visual art yourself in your own work. Is that right?
Yeah. I think we love to be involved in the art process, like whether it's a residential project or a commercial project. I think we love to have a say in kind of what goes into the spaces, and because sometimes we won't, and it just comes via the client or whatever. But I think it is nice to be involved in that.
Very good.
Okay. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Looking to the future, is there anything in particular that you're working on that you can discuss that you're really excited about?
I think the Frick I'm really excited about.
And I suppose your own designs, your gallery. That's an interesting development and recent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm very excited about that, about the scope. We hope to open a gallery in New York next.
What do you?
This year, the plan, we're looking for spaces at the moment, so that's the plan for this year.
The hope is to do it this year.
About 70% of our sales have been going to the US since we've opened. So
really?
It's a very big pool over there. So I think we kind of need to, I guess, make hay while the sun shines. That's the expression.
Yeah.
But
because our business is a creative business, and Bryan is very much at the top of that. And you can only grow that so far because he's only one person who can and one resource that can do so much. Whereas the furniture business is something that we can scale and grow and explore. And there's so many categories that we can get into with that. And so it's really nice that maybe you can't do somebody's full home, but you can have a piece there or two, which is really nice. And your work can have all these like small little lives in other places. So it's something that we really love.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, listen, I think we leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you both for getting up early on a Saturday morning.
Oh, we were up anyway, Alan.
Oh, you were,
we were awake at 6.
Yeah,
we were woken at 6.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you were actually. Yes.
Hello, Alan.
It's been a fascinating.
Sorry, one of your friends has a question.
Hi,
Dennis.
That's
Dennis.
me. Thank you very much for the beautiful looking book.
Oh, that's you. Great.
That's me.
Would you send me an email, Alan@aka?
I'll send you an email, Alan. Yeah,
with your address.
Yes, I knew that artist's name from the Grill Gallery in Killorgan.
Okay.
So I don't know if Bryan or James, you know the Grill Gallery in Killorgan.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
And I was in a group I'm a painter. So I was in a group exhibition with, and Connaught was in it.
Perfect. Okay,
That's how I recognized the work.
My dad did the introduction to him that night, actually, at the opening of the exhibition.
All right. So thank you very much. Your work is beautiful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis. We'll be in touch.
Thanks,
Alan. So look, thanks all for joining us, especially to Bryan and James, and to all of you who've been watching. And I know there's some people live here from Australia, would you believe? Which is not late at night, watching live. But there'll be loads of other people on the recording. So if you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to give it a like, make a comment, and subscribe. It all helps the greater scheme of things. So that's it. Next week, which I'll announce on Wednesday as usual, we have a visual artist who is essentially a plein air painter, which means he goes out in all weathers basically and paints. I think he rarely does work in a studio. So that'll be interesting. And I'll announce who that is next Wednesday. But in the meantime, thanks all for watching. Take care of yourselves. And thank you so much to our two guests, and continued success to you both.
Thank you so much, Alan. And thanks
Thank you for
everybody.
your time. Bye, guys. Have a
Take
great
care.
weekend.